So some of you out there who follow this series might not have ever interacted with your operating system beyond looking up which one you had, if that. What operating system you use and how you use it is a huge part of staying safe online. And there are a lot of options and details that people often don't think about that could be useful if you're trying to save money and stay safe while playing online. Let's get into it. First of all, what the hell is an operating system? It's your computer. It's most of the software that makes your computer be your computer. It's the thing that lets you move files around, open and close programs, and generally turn it from a hunk of weird metals and plastic into a thinking machine. The first two operating systems I'm going to list aren't thought of as operating systems by most people, but you really should. Android and iOS. Smartphones and tablets are frequently thought of as convenience devices rather than computers, but think of it this way. If you took every computer that existed before 1980, combined them into one magical supercomputer that added all of that computing power into one mega device, it would still be slower than pretty much any Android or iOS device you more likely than not have on you right now. Depending on what you need a computer to do, it's possible to make either of these options work as your main computer, but you should know that both of them are seriously limited when it comes to things like editing video or making web content. Which leads to the worst operating system you might bump into, Windows XP. If you are currently using this on your computer at home, watch this on literally any other device and go turn it off. Nothing about it is safe. It is full of holes that assholes like to poke at and exploit. Also, if you want to stream video content, you might not be able to, as many internet-facing servers simply refuse to interface with Windows XP machines. Windows 7 is on a lot of machines you'll find used online. Believe me when I say that this is not a good thing anymore. Not because Windows 7 is particularly bad. Windows 7 is not actively supported as of yesterday. See, Windows 7 stopped being officially supported on January 14th, 2020. So if you're still using it, you need to get off of it as soon as you can. Why? Every Windows desktop and laptop has the same code on it that makes it be Windows. And let's go back to Johnny Assholeface, who is going to poke at computers and try to break things. If Johnny over here spends his time hacking a specific brand of butt plug, funny, but I'm making a video on this later, he might have fun, but he can only attack people who use that specific brand of butt plug. But if Johnny focuses on finding a hole into Windows 7, pardon the pun, he can use those tricks on any Windows 7 machine he finds. Microsoft releases updates to fix holes, but that costs money and eventually stops. Once support is dropped, your computer is growing holes that will never be fixed. Both you and your XP friends have two options. 3 if you count the one you don't want. Possibly 4 if you're lucky. Windows 10 is the current version of Windows. If you have a real or a pirated version of Windows 7 or XP, you can probably update through the official Microsoft tool, link in the doobly-doo. Microsoft thinks it's better to have working computers paying for their software down the line than it is to make a quick buck, so the update tools are actually low-key broken in your favor on purpose. For many, Windows 10 is the sweet spot. It's easy to install and get going, it's a fairly universal operating system, and it'll do most of what you want it to do. It will work for streaming, it'll work for content creation, and it's safe to use and store sensitive information. But Windows 10 takes a larger chunk from your computer than others. A bunch of processing power goes to just Windows being Windows, and that can mean a lot of older machines aren't going to work well with Windows 10. For example, Windows 10 takes 4 gigs of RAM, and a lot of Windows 7 machines only have that, or less. So what can you do if you can't upgrade? Linux is a flexible, free operating system. Like Windows, it has all the basic computer stuff, but unlike Windows, it's open source. Anybody can work on it and put out stuff for free. And there is an entire community of people working on doing exactly that. Now, Linux has a bit of a learning curve. Every operating system does. It's learning how to make your computer do the computer thing all over again. But Linux has a reputation for having a really hard learning curve, and in reality, if you can figure out Windows, you can figure out Linux. There are several variants of it I can point to and recommend, but I'm going to focus on one for now. Ubuntu is widely used and developed. A version of it, Ubuntu Creative, is this, but with a collection of tools any sex worker can use. These include video editing software, making everything from promotional material to full video content easily and with good output, image editing software for everything from direct sales to marketing materials to website components, audio tools for making everything from phone sex professional greetings to audio tracks for hypno videos to promotional material. It's basically a one-stop shop for everything you'll need to get going. There's one other operating system that is worth bringing up as an option, one that you might not have thought of as an option. So Apple is known for producing hipster-style electronics with giant-sized cost, and considering their combination of fuck you buy a new one mentality when it comes to most repairs, their idiotic ideas when it comes to design fundamentals, and the way most pro-doms can relate to the way they enjoy violating their customers' wallets, I don't normally recommend their product line. However, Apple stopped using their own weird architecture over a decade ago, called PowerPC, remember the pretty clamshell models? And switched to using Intel parts. This left a really interesting option. You can install macOS on any off-the-shelf Intel hardware Apple uses in their computers. So there's always the chance that the Windows 7 machine from before could install macOS on it rather than Windows or Linux. The finished product is referred to as a Hackintosh, and it's a much cheaper way to get into the Apple's ecosystem than an actual Apple computer. We'll be doing more videos on this channel. Hit subscribe if you want to see them. Apple has ways of editing photo and video files that have made it the standard for the video editing industry, as well as super common among graphic designers. That doesn't mean it's impossible to do any of that stuff without one, it's just that it might be faster or more efficient on a Mac. There's another operating system I begrudgingly have to mention. It is often ignored by its creators, it's not able to handle a lot of activities, and it's going to be allowed to finish, but Beyonce had the best video of the year. It's Chrome OS. Chromebooks are computers that can't actually do much and are very limited in the software they can run, though they are Linux-based and have limited Android app and Linux program support. We'll be doing a whole video on this operating system's failings and potential usefulness in specific circumstances later. If you're stuck with a Windows XP machine, this might work to boot some life into it, but most Chrome OS computers come with it pre-installed. There's one last thing I want to briefly touch on before I end this episode for taking decidedly way too long. Virtual machines. So an operating system normally interacts directly or close to it with the hardware. Frequently, however, you might not want to be playing with an operating system that has full control of your hardware. You might want an extra layer of disconnection, safety, and protection. Virtual machines allow you to create a virtual computer that exists on top of another operating system in software. We'll go into the nitty-gritty of this in future episodes, but the important thing to know is that this gives you a layer of protection that gives you some options if it's compromised. Virtual machines are particularly important for pro-doms who offer TeamViewer sessions, as it is possible to have your machine be exploited by doing that, and VMs offer some protection. In the event that you think you're compromised, shut down and delete the VM, and you can easily make a new uninfected one and not deal with the attack. So thank you so much for watching. Hit like if you want to see more content like this. Hit subscribe if you want to make Donald Trump step on a Lego every time he wakes up to pee. And remember, moral doesn't mean legal, and Stonewall was a riot.